This is Abnormal Entertainment.
Hey everybody, this is Daniel Garza and welcome to another episode of Put It Together. I'd like to start as usual thanking my producer, Mr. Kevin Moyers, for all his help and support. Thank you, sir. Reminding everybody that you can check us out at abnormalentertainment.com where you can find all the shows on the network. There'll be something there for you, so go check it out. You can also find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube at Little Mexican, LILMESICAN, or go to my Facebook page, Little Mexican Productions, where you can find everything we're doing on our production. You can also find the Zodiacs with Daniel and Wayne page. We've changed the name a little bit. But it's still the same show. We've just added our names to the title. So now you can find us on there. So check out Zodiacs with Daniel and Wayne. Now on the Zodiacs with Daniel and Wayne page on Facebook, every other Monday, 7:00 p.m. Go check it out. I want to welcome my guest today. Hi, Matthew.
Hello.
How are you, sir?
Doing pretty good, thanks. Just being kind of lazy today. I haven't gotten any work done. There are still some dishes in the sink from my party that I had on Saturday. Only 3. They're big ones, but there's only 3 of them. So.
What were you celebrating?
Well, February 1st was a Wednesday, so it wasn't a good day for a party, but it marked the 10-year anniversary of me moving away from my home state of Michigan and moving to San Francisco.
Congratulations. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, very much so. Michigan is not a place for me.
Although it is a pretty state for people out there. It's a pretty state, but yeah, it is a little conservative sometimes. A little bit.
Yeah, and so, I've been living here for 10 years, and I have basically made a self-made family. So yeah, that's something I should mention, like, unless I say my mother or my grandmother, anybody else who I label as like an uncle or my grandparents up in El Cerrito, they're family of choice.
Got it. All right, cool.
So we decided to become family, and it's not legal or anything. We're just, we're a bunch of hippies.
There you go. Well, we'll get into that.
Definitely.
I met Matthew through a mutual acquaintance and decided, like I do for most of my guests, I decided to follow your page and stalk you for a little bit and find out who you were. And I was like, this guy seems kind of interesting. So we'll find out more about you. So Matthew, tell us, do you go by Matthew or do you go by Matt? Which one do you prefer?
I prefer Matt.
Matt, all right, got it. So Matt, tell us how you put it together.
So, to do that, I'll have to give a little bit of the background, which is I'm on disability right now. I'm working on actually getting back into the workforce and everything. It's just there's certain parameters that I have to follow for the sake of my own health. 14 years ago, 2 weeks before Christmas, I was hit by an SUV.
Wow.
I was in the crosswalk. I had the right of way, and the driver blew a red light and hit me in the ribs with an SUV on my right-hand side.
So you were walking?
I was walking.
Wow.
And someone was on their cell phone with their job because they were late for work, and they didn't notice. And 25 miles an hour right in the ribs.
Wow.
And I walked away. But I still have back pain. I was only in the hospital for a few days, but my back is pretty messed up because of it. So what I do to put it together is, and I have rapid cycle bipolar disorder, which is essentially, people know that bipolar means you can go from really depressed to really manic. And for a lot of people, depressive episodes can last weeks, months, indefinite. And manic cycles are usually these short bouts where you get everything done, or as much of it as you can, that you've been ignoring for however long while you were depressed, and then you if you have physical issues, it can knock you out and put you right back into depression for several. For me, because it's rapid cycle, I can go all the way down and all the way up and back and forth everywhere in between several times in a day sometimes.
Wow.
So working in a, office environment isn't necessarily my forte. I can do lots of different things. I'm kind of a Renaissance man. I crochet. I make.
That's really pretty.
Thanks. So I make a lot of fashion accessories, scarves, hats, handbags, things like that. I can even make fingerless gloves now. So, yeah. So I'm an artist and a writer, and I'm a gardener. I propagate succulents in my backyard. I like to give plants as gifts because I don't like cut flowers because they die. So,
before you continue, because I'm kind of interested in the spectrum of emotions that you go through.
All of them. All of the feels, all the time.
Do you? Because I know I've talked about it on the show that I've battled my own depression, and my own anxiety at times, and that's another reason that I was really interested in talking to you. But is there something that triggers it, or is there that pushes you from one end to the other?
Yeah, me.
Oh, okay.
It's this interesting. Recently, I saw an article written about how there's a big difference between pain and suffering. Pain is inevitable. We all feel pain. Things happen that hurt us physically, emotionally. But suffering is when you can't let those things go. So I might get depressed because it's Friday night and I will be sitting here in my office, also known as the Cave of Blunders, because, that's a big pile of yarn behind me. And there's another big pile. You fortunately can't see my futon. My bed's above me, actually. This is a loft bed frame. It's California. It's expensive here. I rent a bedroom in a house. Unfortunately, my rent is very low, but I need to use every cubic inch. Yeah. So the big thing that I've learned, and I'm not on any antidepressants anymore. I was heavily medicated for several years, I think 6 or 7 actually. And what I found was that with the medication, it doesn't always make, and I tried many different ones, it doesn't make depression go away. It's an antidepressant,
right?
But it's also just an antidepressant. They're not happy pills.
Right.
People call them your happy pills. Well, they're not. What they do is they stop you from going too low or too high. They stop that bounce. And the thing that I like to say recently, since I've stopped taking them about 6 months ago, is a flat line is death. And that's a big thing for me is, it stops me from being the level of depression of suicidal, but it doesn't take sad away. It doesn't take pain away. It doesn't take fatigue away. And as I have back pain, the mental health issues, and I'm also HIV positive, I'm undetectable right now, but all of those things combined means it's really easy to just sit on my ass all day and do nothing. And so I decided, I study the Enneagram, the Graves model, which is spiral dynamics, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the Myers-Briggs, I believe in emotional intelligence and things like that. And all of the maintenance systems that I learned how to use through therapy, through friends, that was more beneficial to me than the medication. Mm. And that's not everybody. I'm not saying that everybody don't take my advice and
Right.
quit your meds because I did and it's working for me. It's only been 6 months and I'm still unemployed. So, and so that brings me to, how I put it together.
All right. I'm going to play total ignorant for a minute and ask some questions that maybe some of my listeners might have in mind.
Go ahead.
You mentioned, when I mentioned about the triggers, you say yourself, are there certain things that like maybe you avoid doing or avoid talking about?
Sure.
Or places you avoid so that you don't get caught up in a spiral?
Absolutely. In fact, it's one of the reasons it's a problem for me, actually, because if I know, a couple of years ago, I was friends with both an ex-wife and her ex-husband, and I was friends with both of them. And she and I were better friends than me and him. And we would go out dancing to this one particular place. It had an 80s night, and if I'm going to make a fool of myself, it better be 80s music. Because I'm a horrible dancer. I have white boy moves really hard. And there was not an instance, but there was a straw that broke the camel's back where I realized that she was just completely neglecting, to the point of abuse, her children.
Huh.
And so I got involved in a custody battle on the ex-husband's side. And when that happened, it's 2 years later and she's still blasting me in court. She actually outed me as being HIV positive in open court, which unfortunately, as I'm already on disability and it doesn't actually negatively impact my life, there's nothing that I can do about it, even though it's illegal. But so I avoid going to that bar that we used to love to go to because I know that she might be there. And it would trigger anxiety, possibly rage, because now that I know everything, well, not everything, but I know a lot of what she's said about me in court. Because I never went to court. I initiated the process, but I never actually had to go to court. My deposition was even thrown out as hearsay.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah. So yes, I avoid places where I know, and San Francisco is a very small town. I was part of the knitting circle, and it was a gay men's knitting circle. And we would meet at the same cafe every Sunday and hang out and, work and chat. And so I wouldn't go to the Castro, which is the gayest part of San Francisco, which is where we had our knitting circle, because I didn't want to run into them. And I know that a couple of them go to this particular bar in the South of Market District, so I don't go there. So
it seems like, okay, and before I ask that, we talked to you a little bit about the reasons to not be on medications, but how hard was it to make that decision?
Several years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It was several years of feeling like I'm not making progress. Every time they switched my meds or upped my dosage, I'd have a manic cycle, and I would feel really great for 2 weeks. And then I would be a zombie again. And I finally realized that it's all right, I haven't been really excited about anything for a long time. I didn't get, those big ups. I didn't have the low downs anymore, but I didn't get those high highs anymore either. And I finally realized that, okay, love is painful, right? Love, no matter what, is going to cause you pain. You're going to angst, you're going to worry, you're going to have self-esteem issues and everything, but it's worth it for what love brings you. And so I finally said, okay, I've never been in a stable relationship. I've never had certain things that I always have kind of yearned for. And I decided that it was worth it for me to rely on myself, my books, my very close friends. My roommate owns the house that I live in, and it's just the two of us here, and I've lived in this house for 8.5 years.
Wow.
And he has put up with me being so manic that I have, and, and when I get really depressed, if I don't shower all week, he doesn't comment, so and I have lots of people in my life, my friend Ariel, my grandparents in El Cerrito, Sue and Bill, hi. I have a lot of great people in my life who support me and prop me up.
Right.
And they do that because I'm worth it. And it took getting off the meds to see that I was worth it, to see that I do have things that I contribute to my family, and that I do have an outlook and a goal, well, several goals, but I do have goals that are laudable.
Got it. That's pretty interesting because most people, and again, for everybody listening, anxiety, depression,
people don't see it, but it's real.
Yeah, and it varies from person to person. So for anybody out there that's going, that doesn't happen to me. Okay, well, it doesn't happen to you, but it happens to other people. Right. I had to get on meds to start putting some more value into my life.
Of course.
You were opposite. So just for anybody listening, it happens different because everybody has a different system.
Yeah.
And it depends on what medication you're on and a lot of variables.
And I'd also like to say that, the 7 years that I was on the antidepressants, I'm still here. I didn't kill myself.
Yeah.
That was why I was on them, was because I was thinking about suicide on a daily basis. If you're thinking about suicide on a regular basis, get medication.
Right. Yeah.
Absolutely. Get medication.
That's definitely not a good thought. Yeah.
Yes. We all have those thoughts sometimes. We don't talk about that. That's something that people kind of like to sweep under the rug, and because it's awkward. And there's stigma around it. Admitting that you think about suicide, people say, oh, you just want attention. You just, you want sympathy. You're trying to manipulate people into being friends with you or hanging out with you. And unfortunately, people are going to say that. And you know what? Fuck them.
Yeah.
Because, sorry, forgive my language, but...
It's okay. You can cuss on here.
I know. Based on what we're going to be talking about, I doubt that any kids are going to be interested, because I'm going to talk about, I'm an ENFP, which is extrovert, intuitive, feeling, perceiving on the Myers-Briggs.
Got it.
And I'm a type 2 with a 3-wing on the Enneagram, which means that there's the 9 base personality types, and type 2 is the helper type.
Okay.
So we believe, our basic fear is we want love. Basic desire is we want to be loved. And our basic fear is that we won't be loved for ourselves alone. By the way, if you're interested in personality typing and all that sort of thing, I strongly recommend the podcast Personality Hacker. If you go to personalityhacker.com, you'll be given a test. It takes about 10 or 15 minutes to take their test. It's fairly comprehensive. And they'll give you your Myers-Briggs type. And they will combine all sorts of different things. What an ENFP who's a type 2, that was actually a section in the breakdown. If you're an ENFP with a type...
Sorry, my alarm's going off. Alexa, stop. Thank you. Okay. Okay, well,
it'll give you a breakdown based on, the combinations of, okay, if you're an ENFP who's a type 2, this should be your focus. These are the things that are your strengths, your weaknesses. And it's a good podcast for explaining really how to get out of your own way.
Cool. We'll post that link on the Facebook page so that people can check it out. Maybe I'll reach out to them too and maybe come on my show.
I think that they would love that. They've got like 250 podcasts. I'm starting from the beginning, and it's a long list of them, but they're only like 20, 30 minutes each. So.
Cool. Now, whether you're on medication or not, when you're going through anxiety, depression, it definitely affects, you just mentioned the not showering thing. It affects your daily routines, because sometimes you don't have a daily routine. Everything's sort of whack. How was
I have
it
more
for
of a
you?
weekly routine. Well, for me, it's like, I know that the third Sunday of every month, I'm going to go to my friend Barack's place and we're going to play board games. And that's great. I know that, every Friday night, unless I'm too depressed to bother, my roommate will be down in his room downstairs. I'll be up here in my room, and we'll be on our computers playing cards together online.
Okay.
That's actually how I met my roommate, was playing board games together on a German site called Brettspielwelt.
Cool. That's pretty cool. Relationships, as far as dating and situations, how do you, and I don't want to intrude in whether you're single
Go ahead.
or seeing somebody, but how does that affect sex, affect relationships, dating?
Yeah, that's definitely a big one. A lot of times, I suspect sometimes that the reason that I date at all is because having a date means I have to take a shower. It's one of those things where I spend a lot of time getting out of my own way, setting up my life and systems so that I can't just crawl in my cave and stay there. Because I'm liable to do that. I'm not liable. I do that a lot. I've been arrested a few times, no charges or anything, and only once did I actually go to jail, and that was because the cop was a redneck and didn't like that I was gay. You really don't like that. But I've been 5150'd, which is psychiatric emergency, more times than I care to admit in my life. So it's one of those things where going out sometimes is not a good idea for me if I'm in one of those spaces. And, a lot of people don't recognize it because I've learned how to present well and make sure that, my grandfather is bipolar as well.
Okay.
And you can tell, like, really easily, really quickly tell that my grandfather isn't stable. That's back in Michigan family, not here. My grandpa here, Bill, he's a physicist. He works at Berkeley. He's an electron microscopist, actually.
Oh, well.
Yeah. And Sue, and they're in their 70s, and he's still working, and, they're really very stable people. Eccentric, but stable. But one thing that I've always been afraid of is having people be able to look at you and just go, ooh, that's a crazy person. Because, there are people out there where, it's like you take one look and within 30 seconds you can tell this is a person who's not stable.
Right.
And so if I don't feel, particularly together, then I stay home.
Got it. And I understand, for me, there are very few and far between things that really get me happy. Doing interviews makes me happy because for at least an hour, I'm out of my own head and I'm in somebody else's world.
Right.
What does it for you? Knitting?
Yarn. Crochet, actually. I can't knit for shit.
Oh, okay. Crocheting.
Yeah, I love to, and I make jewelry. I'm even figuring out right now how to make, well, not figuring out how to, I kind of want to make lampshades because my friend Mitya in Sacramento, so what really makes me happy, my garden, my good friends, like I would rather have a bottle of wine or, some of my green stuff, my weed, and sit with a friend or several friends and play canasta and chat. I'd rather do that on a Friday night than go out.
Got it.
I don't like people en masse because it's awkward. I mean, I haven't gone dancing in about 2 years. It's just not my thing.
Right.
But having good people in my life, having those people that I know, like, this is somebody who I can rely on and who I know relies on me for things. They give me respect, not just affection, but respect. And so those things are what make me happy. And, I love making gifts for people because there's nothing quite like the look on somebody's face when you give them a shawl that you've made just for them and it's perfect for them, because I'll bead a shawl too. Or you make a purse. My friend Natalie, she met me because I was in a bar working on a scarf. And
cool.
Yeah, I know. Like, that's what if I go to the bar, I'm sitting there in the back of the bar crocheting while I have a drink.
Nice.
And so we met that way, and I made her a purse and I just gave it to her 6 weeks late for her birthday. And
it's handmade. It's going to take time.
Well, and I'm also, I will get halfway finished with a project and I will get sick of looking at it. Like, I hate red right now. I am so sick of the color red because I'm working on a blanket for a friend, and it's
here.
all red, like lots of different shades of it, but it's just reds, and I'm sick of looking at it.
I can imagine. My mom used to crochet, so I remember watching her just sit there for hours.
Mm-hmm. It's one of those, like, I love that we have Netflix and things like that now, because in 2 weeks, in fact, just last night I finished it, I went through all 6 seasons of Call the Midwife.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's a British show, so there's only like 8 to 10 episodes per season.
Still, that's...
Yeah, I binged 6. So yeah, that's 60 episodes of a show in 2 weeks, because this is my office. It's my bedroom, but it's my office.
Right.
And I work at home a lot. Don't get me wrong. I will take small, and that's the other thing about finishing things. Like, I can't take a blanket that I'm working on when I take the bus or I take the train somewhere, because I don't drive. But I'll take a scarf or a pair of gloves, and I'll sit there and, while I'm on the bus with my headphones in. And even that can be awkward and anxiety-ridden sometimes, because this isn't me being arrogant. This is just the way it is. People stare. I'm a dude, and I'm doing something that dudes don't normally do.
Right.
It's... People think of it. I've actually gotten dirty looks when I've been back in Michigan. In fact, I was asked not to bring my yarn to a party because it made the guys uncomfortable.
Dear Jesus.
Because I was so obvious. Exactly. Like, I come from a place where you cannot break the cookie cutters. You have to fit into that little cookie cutter that everybody else fits into, or you're ostracized.
Wow.
So, the anxiety, the feelings of self-worth, those things, I was lucky the other day when I went to the city, because I live in Daly City, just south of San Francisco. And when I went up to give my friend Natalie her purse, I was working on something while I was on the train, and on the way up to see her, a very, very sexy man actually, very obviously was staring at me.
Cool.
Yeah, it was great. I wish I had the cojones to actually have, said, hey, take a picture to last longer, or give him my number or something. Well, hell, years ago, there was a guy who actually, I didn't know that he was staring at me. This was before I clued into the fact that, people were looking.
Yeah.
He took a picture of me while I was on the train, without my knowledge.
Nice.
And that's creepy.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
But he did, and the only reason I found out was because he posted it on Facebook, and a friend of mine tagged me.
Oh.
That's how small San Francisco is. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I actually dated him for 2 weeks, and then he dumped me. So, yeah, creepy. He was a creeper, a little bit.
Um, I think it was something we were talking about, or some post that I saw on your Facebook, but the idea of not taking things personal when you're stressed or when you're in that in that manic state, for instance.
Right.
It's so difficult, correct?
It really is. I love my mother, but we have a little bit of a fraught relationship. She is born again as of 3 or 4 years ago. She started going to church again, and it's led to some interesting disagreements between us. And the last time that we saw each other in person, I was actually kind of cruel to her because she set off a rage fit where I was in such a state of rage that it was about 18 hours of pure red vision. I just couldn't see anything except everything made me just completely angry. And I said some things that I shouldn't have. And, it was over a year ago. So we now know that I'm never going back home for a visit because that town is a trigger for me.
Got it.
Like going back there, all I see is kids calling me Four Eyes, kids calling me a fag, adults even being, I was ostracized.
Right.
And so I've learned, even when it's really super dark and I'm depressed or, I'm, angry with myself because I'm not getting the things done that I need to get done. Sorry, carbonation. I just sort of remind myself, okay, there's a light at the end. I can't see the light at the end of the tunnel, but I know it's there.
Got it.
And at some point, the feeling will pass. It's just neurochemicals. That's not always the case because a lot of things, what you're talking about is specifically when it's my internal brain that's the problem.
Right.
And I just have to remind myself, okay, this is my brain fucking with me.
Yeah.
And I just have to wait until it gets bored with doing that.
Yeah.
And, and then the neurochemicals balance out and, I can go outside and enjoy the sunshine and my garden and take a walk. I mean, I live in one of the most beautiful cities in the world. I mean, San Francisco, there's no one in the world who doesn't know what San Francisco is. It's the island of misfit toys where strangers become friends and you can be as crazy as you want. And most people aren't going to take much offense to it.
Right.
There's street murals and mosaics all over the place. There's a place called the Moraga Steps, and the front of each step is mosaiced. And it's just this beautiful spot. And so what makes me happy is beauty and understanding. Having people around who understand and who stick around. Because a lot of people, if you're too complicated, if you have baggage, if you have, too many prerequisites for what you can handle, they won't want to put up with that. Yeah. And I'll admit that I'm also, this is me making myself look good. I haven't said anything about my, cons. But I have really super high standards for things like morality and other things. Like, if you deliberately cause harm to anyone, I don't care if they're not connected to me in any way. If you are deliberately causing harm, if there's malice in whatever you do, you're out. That's it. I won't in any way. And there's a lot of other, I have very stringent guidelines for if you're in my life, there's certain things that I won't tolerate.
Before I get into that part, because I wanted to kind of highlight for people how strong our minds can be. Because I've talked about this when I do HIV education for kids, And I tell them that I know when I was diagnosed in 2000, I didn't realize how sick I was until somebody said, "You look sick." And then my mind was like, "Oh shit, I am sick." And then I got sick. Then
Right.
I couldn't walk and I couldn't eat and all of the above. But also, I think I read that on your page and I was like, "Oh my God, that's my brain." Because I was at an event that I was invited to.
Right.
And I was doing video for them and I was asked to stay the whole event. And halfway through, I was ready to bolt until somebody stopped me and was like, "Why are you leaving?" I'm like, "Because I don't have anybody to talk to." She's like, "But we're talking." And I was like, "Oh yeah." And we've been already talking for like 10 minutes. And I kept saying, "I gotta go. I gotta go." And she's like, "Why?" I'm like, "Cause I don't have anybody to talk to." She's like, "We're talking." I'm like, "Oh yeah." Okay. Busted on that one. Okay. So I guess I'll stay. And then, but as soon as the last play was over, I was bolting out and I was stopped at the door. They're like, "Well, there's an after social. Aren't you staying?"
It's like, no, overload.
Yeah,
Overloaded.
exactly.
Done.
I was like, I've interviewed people. I've sat through plays. My job is done. Nobody said I had to sit down and mingle. Like, no.
Yeah. Strangers that are like more than 3 of them at a time. No.
Yeah.
No.
And it's funny because my brain kept telling me, nobody wants to talk to you. They're only talking to you because you're working, but nobody wants to be social with you. And then as soon as I got home, I got some messages like, "Where did you go? You didn't even say goodbye. Where are you?" Like, and I was like, "Oh." And I was
People
like,
care. People notice.
like, "Damn you, brain. Damn
Right.
you." Does that sound familiar?
Well, I even just posted yesterday. It's lessened somewhat with maturity and with age and with a lot of self-work, internal work. But I still occasionally have that thought that no one in my life likes me. They're just tolerating me.
Yeah.
They're just putting up with me because ... You know, in one case, a former friend, I basically figured out, I don't know if this is my brain or if this was the truth, because I can't always trust my perceptions, but I designed and put together her garden for her and was maintaining it for her and everything, and I loved doing it. And I didn't want her to pay me because, you know, she took me to see Avenue Q, which is this awesome, hilarious musical. You know, she would, you know, cook dinner for me occasionally, and we would hang out and play board games together. And, you know, it was wonderful. And then she got a boyfriend. She started paying me to do the work, and we weren't really hanging out. And then I just stopped feeling welcome there. And so I walked away. I walked away from $200 a month that I was making there. That's what she started paying me to take care of the garden, because I would rather do something that makes me happy. I hate money. Money ruins everything to me. But yeah, it's definitely one of those where when you don't see a lot of value in yourself, and that's how depression tricks you. Depression tells you you're worthless. You're a leech on society. You're annoying. You're too difficult. You're, you know, all of these things, you know, all these things that we hate that we have about ourselves, and amplifies them to such an extent that you just believe it. And even though you might have people in your life, hopefully, who love and cherish you, you can't see it because your brain is saying, well, if people really loved me, then why do all of these people leave me? Or why do all of these people ignore me? Why doesn't anybody show up to my game night Friday nights? Why doesn't, you know, all these things? And so one thing that helps me when I'm in that space is I just run a list in my head. Ray, he's basically become my uncle. You know, and his girlfriend calls me, you know, I call her auntie because she asks me to. You know, and then there's my grandparents, Sue and Bill, and, you know, my friend Ariel, and there's all these people in my life who know how much I struggle. Ariel always pays for dinner, except yesterday when we hung out because I gave my credit card to the cashier while she wasn't looking, while she was still getting her. So yeah, and I run through that list of, okay, these people have stuck around. These people, not everyone is going to see your value.
Right.
And so the not taking it personally. Yeah, that's a hard one to do. It's hard to not take things personally, but at the same time, especially with mental health issues, you have to understand that rejection happens to everyone.
Right.
And so that would probably be my big trigger, is when I feel I'm being rejected or put off, being avoided, being rejected, being avoided. Those are things that trigger me to feel frustrated, depressed, angry, annoyed. And I have to just remind myself, okay, do something else. Talk to someone else,
Right. How much energy do you think you spend dealing with your brain that you could use on something else?
That I could use on something else?
Yeah.
100%. But I would say that the percentage of my capacity that goes into getting out of my own way, it's probably about 30 or 40% of just my mental energy. And unfortunately, if I don't have mental energy, I don't have physical energy.
Right.
For me, a lot of my life is mind over matter. And getting my brain to overcome my body, that's another 30%. So really about, a good 2/3, I would say, of my brain is don't let your brain trick yourself, and don't let your body be an anchor keeping you somewhere that when you want to go out to sea. When you want to sail and your body won't let you, how do I get up and over that? What are my methods? What are my, those are a big thing for me.
Yeah. Because this morning I had an interview to do and it didn't work out. The guy was a douche and it just didn't work out. And I almost took it personally until I analyzed the situation and I realized, no, he's
just a douche.
He's a douche, and I'm not going to play his game. Or this is my show. You want to be on my show, you go by my rules. Period.
Right. And I'm honored to be included, by the way. Thank you.
No, you're welcome. Thank you. I feel honored when people want to come because I'm a little talk show. But he was being an asshole. He was being a complete asshole.
Yeah.
Anyway, that said, but I couldn't sleep last night, and that put me off. And there was all these factors to the day. I have an appointment at 7:30 tonight that my mind was already on at noon going, we're not going. And we're not going. We're not going to make it at 7:30. So stop making excuses and stop making all these reasons because we're not going anywhere. So I talked to my boyfriend. He's like, so are you coming tonight? I'm like, well, he goes, that's all I need to know. I'll see you tomorrow morning. And I'm like, why do you say that? He goes, because I know you. And rather than stress you out and convince
or make you feel guilty.
Yeah. He goes, I'd rather just, okay, don't worry about it. Stay home, do what you need to do, and I'll see you tomorrow morning. And I'm like, but now I have to cancel this other appointment and now I'm stressing, but hopefully he'll understand that there was another interview. Hopefully they'll understand that mentally I couldn't earlier and I could work to that, but now physically I'm stressing about getting in the car and going anywhere.
Yeah.
And then that affects everything. It'll affect my driving. It'll affect my mood when I get there. I won't do an effective interview because I'm not going to be into it. I'll just want to rush through it and get home.
Right.
And so rather than do all these stupid things like get behind the wheel of the car, because I suffer from a lot of anger issues now. Rather than get behind the wheel of the car and drive 80 miles an hour and honk at people.
And maybe cause an accident.
Yeah, I'd rather just stay home.
Right.
Which I almost did the other day because I was being pissy and arrogant. And it taught me a lesson. I'm like, don't do it. So does that make sense to you? Does that resonate?
Oh, absolutely. That's preaching to the choir. Because like I said, I won't go out to certain places. So, and I hate that rhetoric in my head that goes, oh, if I'm too depressed, I won't go and see the therapist because I'll have anxiety about seeing the therapist because I'm afraid that they'll put me in psychiatric, emergency for 72 hours. And so, there's all these, okay, because I'm me and because I'm feeling this way, if I do this, the likelihood that it'll go bad is high. So, yeah. So, if you don't mind, I'd like to talk about the outposts.
Oh, sure.
So, everybody, knows what an outpost is. It's, along borders and whatnot, or, you have these outposts that keep the light lit and make sure that, the border is watched or whatever. So, for a long time now, I've wanted to have a hippie commune. I would love to just have a big, huge amount of land, do my own farming, have lots of buildings for friends and family to live there with me. And that would be great. And we would drive each other crazy. It's also prohibitively expensive in California, and I will never leave California unless I absolutely have to because, look at the rest of the country. At least here I know that my health care won't go away.
Right.
I'm not paying the kind of money that HIV meds cost. I can't afford that. And there's also I have too many good people in Northern California. So instead, my roommate calls this our home, not his home. He considers this to be my home too, and has for many years. Several, I guess, not many, sorry. I get bogged down in semantics. I correct my own grammar.
There you go.
So, I live in Daly City. So this is Outpost DC. We have a guest room. That guest room is fully furnished. If a friend breaks up with somebody and needs to crash for a week, we've got the guest room for that, And we've got the middle bedroom upstairs, which is mostly empty. It was my spare supply closet for my yarn for a while, but I managed to not organize, but I managed to downsize some of my crafting supplies. And so that room, if somebody needs, a place to live for 6 months while they get back on their feet, Ray and I like having our space. We're at opposite ends of the house on different floors, so we have our privacy.
Right.
And those 2 empty bedrooms and a floor between us maintain that. But we're an outpost. Outpost DC is, if that's what somebody needs, it's there for them.
Cool.
And not just anybody, somebody we know. Somebody within the system of outposts or within our friends or family, respectively. And so then there's Outpost Mountain View, and that's my friends Danielle and Ramsey. And then there's Outpost EC, and that's my grandparents in El Cerrito. Outpost LP for Land Park, because Michi lives just like this far on the map from Land Park in Sacramento. She's within walking distance of the Sacramento Zoo. And, and there's others. And we've got these outposts where it's like, okay, somebody in the network needs something. How can we make it happen? And so instead of having, one big compound somewhere, we have a piecemeal commune where we support each other and we have our independence still. We, don't pool all of our resources and ration it or anything like that. I have to maintain my own life. And so do they. But if something comes up or if something's needed, Sue and Bill, he's going through, he has lymphoma, and he's on his 6th round of chemo treatments. And Sue has multiple sclerosis, and they're in their 70s. So, but they like to throw dinner parties every few months. And if they do, I come over, I'll help cook, and that's basically it, because they have a house cleaner. So, God, that would be nice. Such a disaster. But yeah, so, so that's what we do is we support each other. And so you can have what you want when you're honest and when you let yourself be vulnerable. We're trained from an early age that you can't show weakness, because if you show weakness, then people will take advantage of it.
Right.
Or they'll reject you. And yeah, that's going to happen. But you can't hole up in your cave all your life and be alone, because that's not fulfilling.
Exactly.
And if you do that, you won't be happy. So you have to risk. And I'm fortunate that I've found wonderful, amazing people. Thank you, California. Yeah. And you will find those people when you look for them and when you let them see what you are.
We got into the point where I do my words of wisdom, but I think you just kind of said your words of wisdom. That's pretty, unless you have something else that you want to put out there.
No, just that's basically it, is just, the only other thing I would say is that I'm polyamorous. I'm single right now, mostly, kind of. I don't really know, because the guy that I'm seeing is a single dad, and I'm a little bit feckless. So, yeah, him taking on another person that he would have to support is probably what keeps him from wanting more with me.
Got it.
But the big thing about polyamory for me is that, I would be happy to have a bisexual man and a woman in a relationship with me. I wouldn't sleep with the woman, but I would be happy to have her in that relationship, because I'm very comfortable in my feminine energy, and having, I call myself a man wife. I'm kind of non-binary. And that's another thing I can't stand is, gender roles. I'm a feminist. I think that women are superior to men in many ways.
Okay.
So what I would say is just, you can't rely on one person for everything, and you can't be everything for any one person.
Right.
So having, a group of people, not necessarily romantically, but for me, it's been family. I like to date, I like sex, but I'm not at a place where I'm ready to be in a relationship.
Got it.
So for me, it's like having that poly ideology, I guess, with my family and my friends, and forming kind of that sort of family. You build your own network, and that net, that support net, thank you, Republicans, by the way, for attacking the social, the federal safety net. Having that safety net means that you can go out and do things that you want to do and strive for what you want to be, because when you do, you know that if you fall flat on your face doing it, you'll still have that net to go back to, and they'll take care of you.
Got it.
And there's no shame in that at all. You're going to fail if you try things.
We're down to the last 6 minutes of the show.
Go ahead.
But this went a lot faster than I thought it would. Usually I'm pretty good about like, oh, okay, what's the hour? But there's a lot of really interesting things that you were talking about. I'm going to use, you are a very intelligent, smart guy. Not to mention you are good looking and very interesting. If
Can
somebody,
I come back in a few months and give an update on how my progress is going?
you can come back anytime you want. Just let me know. But say, for instance, because I know there's a lot of people at my range, which it's kind of a milder state of anxiety, and I dare to say more to your state, like there's a spectrum. But if somebody out there meets somebody anywhere between me and you, and they want to date them, what suggestions would you have somebody that wants to date somebody with
issues?
With issues, yeah.
Well, the first thing that I would say is just remember that we all have issues. Whether those issues are systemic in society and culture, or they're systemic in the person you're wanting to be with. For me, it's my systemic. It's my system that causes these issues. And the past. I have a long, for being 32 years old, I have an interesting past. But I would say communication, patience, and honesty. And honesty doesn't mean 100% everything. If somebody says, hey, does this make me look fat? Say no. Okay? Say no if you're dating them. If you're not dating them, then say, honey, that makes you look like a blimp. Take it off. Do something else. And that's okay. But, it's just communication. It's letting a person know that you care about them and letting them know that you're not going to run away and being patient with them. Okay. Because sometimes you are going to get, candles and you're going to get flowers and you're going to make this nice dinner or whatever, and they'll love it, but they might not want to have sex. They might just want to cuddle and watch TV, and that's okay. Or they might want to skip the dinner altogether when you want to propose and they just want to fuck. Mm-hmm. And if you're honest about what you're feeling with each other, and it's like, okay, where do we meet in the middle? Like you were saying, if there's somebody between you and me, everything is complicated. Mm-hmm. Whether or not we want to admit it or believe it, the simplest feeling, love, just love, that's a complicated set of attraction, respect, understanding, comfortability, brain chemicals, pheromones. There's all sorts of stuff that plays into even what you feel is the simple moment. There are always factors and variables at work that either you aren't paying attention to or might not understand. So patience, understanding, and honesty, I would say, are
awesome.
Are my advice. Be patient with each other and be honest with each other and see what happens.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That was good.
Thank you.
Don't hang up. Let me say goodbye to everybody. For everybody listening, I hope you've gotten as much out of this conversation as I did. Even with the amount of information that I've gathered, I still learned a couple of new things today. So thank you, Matt, for being on the show. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
For everybody out there, thank you for listening. Remember, go check us out at normalentertainment.com. We can find all the shows on the network. Check me out at Little Mexican on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. We can find everything that we're doing on our production team. Thank you, Mr. Moyers. For everybody listening, this is Daniel Garza saying, hey, put it together.
Subscribe to Put It Together on iTunes, Stitcher, and at abnormalentertainment.com/putittogether. Find Put It Together on Facebook and tweet Daniel at Lil Messican, LILMESICAN. And for more podcasts, comics, books, movies, and more, head to abnormalentertainment.com.
You've been listening to the Abnormal Entertainment Network.